Right now, as you are watching this, a new heat dome is rebuilding over the United States, and it is not sitting where the last one sat. This is a pattern that has already broken records once this month, killed dozens of people, and forced more than 125 million Americans under heat alerts in a single day. And instead of fading out the way heat waves normally do, it is reloading and shifting its target. If you were in the part of the country that got hit 2 weeks ago and you're thinking you are in the clear now, I need you to hear this clearly. You may not be the one catching a break. Someone else is about to get what you just went through, and in some cases, it is going to be worse. I have been watching the model runs update over the last several days. I need to walk you through exactly what is building, where it is headed, and why this specific pattern is becoming one of the most persistent and dangerous heat setups of the entire year. Subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that bell notification, because this situation is moving fast, and I will be back with updates the moment anything changes. Let's get into it. To understand why this new heat dome matters, you need to understand it is not the first one this summer, it is the third. The first major heat dome of the season built over the eastern United States and eastern Canada in late June, right around the 4th of July holiday. No AA forecasters were blunt about it at the time, warning of heat indices approaching or exceeding 105 to 110 degrees in numerous locations. Overnight lows stayed dangerously warm and offered almost no relief. Cities from Minneapolis and Chicago down through Nashville and Atlanta were placed under extreme heat risk. That first dome eventually faded by around July 5th. But it didn't end there. A second heat dome had already started forming behind it, this time centered over the western half of the country. By early July, heat advisories were active across the Southwest and even into Alaska. As of the most recent tracking, this ongoing 2026 heatwave pattern has been formally attributed with at least 44 deaths. That number is from earlier in the pattern. It has almost certainly climbed since. That second dome did not stay polite and contained. It intensified through the second week of July and became, by multiple measurements, one of the strongest heat domes on the entire planet. Montana hit 115 degrees. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a place people associate with cool summers, hit 100 degrees. Salt Lake City set its highest temperature in 152 years of official records. This heat dome was rivaling one of the strongest heat domes over northern Africa for the title of most intense heat system anywhere on Earth right now. Let that sink in for a second. A heat dome sitting over the American Rockies and Northern Plains was going head to head with a heat dome over the Sahara for sheer intensity. That system pushed east through the Midwest and into the mid-Atlantic, with triple-digit heat reaching from the Dakotas to New Hampshire. It then spread down toward Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., threatening to break all-time records in some of those cities. Now here's what changed in just the last few days, and it is the reason we are making this video right now instead of waiting. After a brief lull around July the 10th and 11th, the dome did not dissipate the way a normal heat wave would. It rebuilt. It reintensified over the Great Basin, the Rockies, and the Plains, and pushed east again, putting more than 125 million Americans under heat alerts on a single day. That is more than a third of the entire country's population, simultaneously. And the latest forecast guidance, updated just in the last couple of days, is now showing something specific. The dome is expected to reintensify again across the Central Plains and Mountain West through this week, before a monsoonal surge from Mexico finally starts to break the pattern. In the meantime, meteorologists are pointing to a fresh push of 100-degree heat aimed at the Midwest. There is also the potential for the East Coast to get hit by the same air mass yet again. This is the part that should actually concern you more than any single day of extreme heat. This is not one heat wave. This is a stalled, reloading pattern that keeps rebuilding itself and re-aiming at different parts of the country every time it looks like it is finally going to break down. The reason it keeps doing this comes down to something called blocking. When a high-pressure ridge becomes strong enough and the broader jet stream pattern around it weakens, that ridge can effectively get stuck in place or shift only slowly instead of moving through like a normal weather system. Meteorologists sometimes describe an especially stubborn version of this as an omega block, because on a weather map, the jet stream bends into a shape that resembles the Greek letter omega. It wraps around the high pressure and locks it in place underneath. When that happens, the heat does not pass through a region in a day or two. It sits there, day after day, while the pattern slowly walks across the country instead of blowing out entirely. Why the danger compounds? Instead of resetting, here is something that I don't think gets explained enough when people talk about heat waves, and it matters enormously for what is happening right now. The danger from extreme heat is not a single-day event that resets overnight. It compounds. When overnight low temperatures stay unusually warm, which has been happening throughout this entire pattern, the human body does not get the recovery window it needs. Normally, even during a hot day, your body gets some relief once temperatures drop at night. When those overnight lows stay in the 80s instead of dropping into the 60s or 70s, your body is essentially fighting heat stress continuously for days in a row without a real chance to recover. This is a huge part of why heat domes that stall for a week or more are so much more dangerous than a single 100-degree day. The body's cumulative strain builds, especially in older adults, people with cardiovascular conditions, outdoor workers, and anyone without reliable access to air conditioning. This is also why heat is, quietly, the deadliest weather phenomenon in the United States most years. More than hurricanes, more than tornadoes, more than flooding. It doesn't produce the dramatic visuals that make other disasters go viral. Nobody's roof is torn off. No river rises through their living room. It just kills quietly over days, mostly among people who are already vulnerable and often in their own homes. The wildfire smoke connection. There's a second layer to this pattern that has been making an already dangerous situation worse, and it connects directly to the same high-pressure system driving the heat. Large wildfires burning in Canada have been producing enormous volumes of smoke. The same high-pressure dome responsible for the extreme heat has also been shaping how that smoke moves and where it settles. High-pressure systems rotate clockwise in the northern hemisphere, and depending on exactly where this dome sits, it can funnel that smoke directly down into the Great Lakes region, the upper Midwest, and eventually the Northeast. It then traps the smoke there by suppressing the vertical mixing that would normally help disperse it. That combination, dangerous heat and hazardous air quality arriving at the same time in the same places, is a significantly more serious public health situation than either problem on its own. On July 16th, parts of the affected region were dealing with heat records and heavy wildfire smoke simultaneously. That is exactly the kind of layered event that overwhelms hospitals and emergency services faster than either hazard would alone. So let's talk specifically about where this is headed, because the whole point of this video's title is that the target is shifting. The regions that bore the worst of this pattern over the last 2 weeks, the Northern Rockies, the Northern Plains, and the Great Basin, are expected to see the dome reintensify over them again through the middle of this week before the monsoon finally starts cutting into it. But the more immediate concern for a much larger population is the renewed push toward the Midwest, with 100-degree heat expected to build there. Forecasters are also specifically flagging the possibility that the East Coast gets drawn back into this same air mass for a second or even third round. If you are in the Midwest or the eastern half of the country and you already went through one round of this heat in late June or early July, I understand the instinct to think you already dealt with this and it's over. Based on everything the models are currently showing, that assumption could be wrong. This pattern has already proven twice in the span of about 3 weeks that it can rebuild and retarget instead of simply dissipating. There is no guarantee it does not do that a third time. The eventual relief, according to current forecasting, is expected to come from the North American monsoon, as increasing moisture surging up from Mexico finally starts to erode the high-pressure ridge that has been anchoring this entire pattern. But eventually is doing a lot of work in that sentence. As of the most recent forecast updates, that breakdown is not expected until sometime after July 18th. And even then, a monsoon surge breaking a heat dome does not mean an instant return to normal. It means the pattern starts to lose its grip, not that it disappears overnight. What you actually need to do. Right now, I want to give you real practical guidance here because a heat dome does not feel as urgent as a hurricane bearing down on your coastline, and that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. People underestimate it. Drink water before you feel thirsty. By the time your body signals thirst, you are already behind on hydration. Avoid strenuous outdoor activity during the hottest part of the day, generally late morning through late afternoon. If you are working outdoors, push for more frequent breaks in shade and hydration checks with your employer. Check on elderly neighbors, especially anyone who lives alone or does not have reliable air conditioning. Heat deaths disproportionately hit older adults who are isolated, and a 5-minute knock on the door can be the difference that matters. Never, under any circumstances, leave a child or a pet in a parked car, even for a few minutes. Vehicle interiors can climb to dangerous temperatures shockingly fast, even with mild outside temperatures, let alone during a heat dome. Know the warning signs. Heat exhaustion looks like heavy sweating, dizziness, and nausea. Heat stroke is more serious. Confusion, a body temperature above 103 degrees and hot, dry skin, meaning the body has stopped sweating effectively. If you or someone near you shows signs of heat stroke, that is a medical emergency. Get to shade, get cool water on the skin, and get medical help immediately. Do not wait to see if it passes on its own. If you have access to a cooling center in your area, whether that's a library, a mall, or a designated public cooling facility, and you do not have reliable air conditioning at home, use it. This is exactly what those spaces exist for. The uncomfortable truth about this particular summer is that this heat dome pattern is not behaving like a normal single event that arrives and then leaves. It is behaving like a stubborn, self-renewing system, one that has already produced some of the most intense heat readings on the entire planet this year. It has contributed to dozens of deaths and is now actively reloading to threaten a different stretch of the country than it hit 2 weeks ago. Whether you are in the Midwest bracing for the next 100-degree push on the East Coast, wondering if you're really done with this after the last round, or still under the reintensifying dome across the Rockies and Plains, the pattern is telling us the same thing. This is not over. Treating it like it is over is exactly how people get caught off guard. We will keep tracking this closely, every update to the model guidance, every shift in where the ridge is centered, and exactly when that monsoon surge finally starts breaking this thing down for good. Subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from, and what the heat has actually been like where you live these last few weeks. I read every single one. Stay cool out there, stay hydrated, and check in on the people around you. See you in the next one.